You know that I love talking about the NFL quarterback position, trying to figure out different trends. I know that I've done the segment about first-round picks over the last 2 decades being more than likely a 50% bust rate. I've done that segment numerous times, probably too many. But what I did want to look at is kind of answering the Baker Mayfield question, and that is we have a first-round quarterback going to another team. How often is that quarterback successful at his next place? The results are horrifying. It's even worse. And actually, what I really did is I want to dig into kind of the last 10 drafts over a different period. Like, it's too soon, some of the more recent drafts, to decide what we have as far as these quarterbacks and what their careers are going to be. So I focused on 2009 to 2018, but I ran the numbers from 2009 to 2017, the 25 first-round quarterbacks. If you throw in the 18 class, that's 30 first-round quarterbacks. And that includes Baker, but we're still, I guess TBD with Baker, even if history tells us that we probably already have our answer for what he's going to be at the next franchise. We also have Mitch in Pittsburgh. We've got Mariota in Atlanta. Atlanta's likely going to be terrible, and Ritter's going to play at some point. Like, Marcus Mariota starting all 17 games for the Atlanta Falcons, there's like no way. I mean, is it an impossibility? No. Is it likely? No. Bad teams eventually going to go to the young guy to see what you have. And with Mitch having Pickett there in Pittsburgh as well, it's not likely that Mitch Trubisky's going to be the guy end to end here for the Steelers. It's just not likely, right? So, as I've mentioned in the past, the first rounders are basically a 50-50 proposition for being a bust. If you look at the drafts from 2009 to 2017, that's 25 first round quarterbacks. You have 4 that you can say these guys were franchise guys. That's Stafford. Again, he changed teams after 12 years, so I'm not putting him in that group. He's sort of like different, right? Stafford, Cam. Cam was a good quarterback for the Panthers, like he did what he needed to do as far as solving that franchise's problem at the position, even if I thought he was a little bit of a peak fluke year there when they made it to the Super Bowl. Andrew Luck, again, not even perfect there because he bounced too early because he got the shit kicked out of him. And then Mahomes, who clearly is that guy. Deshaun Watson would be in this group, but he's sort of in his own group that's a little bit more complicated. So it's really 4 out of the 25 franchise problem solvers. 5 if we include Watson, but he's not with that franchise anymore, so you can't really include him. Then you've got this other group that just have no teams after they were done. Jake Locker had injuries with Tennessee, never started a game anywhere else. Christian Ponder was on a bunch of different rosters, but didn't necessarily make them all the time. Blake Bortles, since Jacksonville took him, he's had 2 pass attempts with the LA Rams. Manziel never played for another team again. Paxton Lynch did not have a ton of interest after his short stint there, getting a couple starts with Denver. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 quarterbacks out of this group that were first rounders that had nothing going on. All right, so let's look at guys that were first round picks and then went to a new team and had some starts. Mark Sanchez, if you remember the Dick Enberg pronunciation, 62 starts with the Jets, 11 for everybody else. Josh Freeman, remember when Tampa had him? You're like, this guy's a horse. 2 starts the rest of his career post-Tampa. Tim Tebow, 14 starts with Denver. God, that number seems low. 2 with the Jets. Blaine Gabbert, this is actually a success story. 27 starts at the beginning of his career, 21 with a handful of other teams. RG3, 35 starts with Washington, 7 at post-Washington. Tannehill, Ryan Tannehill. I'm going to put a little bold mark around Ryan Tannehill. 88 starts with Miami, which probably feels higher than we would remember it. 43 with Tennessee. His first 2 years were terrific statistically. Took a step back somewhat last year. But I'm telling you to remember this one because he seems to fall into his own category altogether. Brandon Weeden, 20 starts, then 5. EJ Manuel, 17 starts with Buffalo, then 1. Teddy Bridgewater, weird one, 28 starts with Minnesota, then 35 with Carolina, New Orleans, and Denver. Jameis, maybe in that Tannehill group, 70 starts with Tampa. He probably still would have been a starter there, even though he's a turnover machine. But once you get the option to bring in Brady, that's going to change your career path. He would have had more than 7 starts in New Orleans if he had stayed healthy, and he's the number 1 guy on the depth chart with the Saints. So Jameis could be one of those rare guys that goes from a team as a top pick and then has a real career after that. Mariota, 61 starts in Tennessee, 0 since. Jared Goff has 69 starts with the Rams, 14 with Detroit. He's going to be Detroit's guy, I guess, for a little while. Carson Wentz, 68 starts with Philly, 17 with the Colts. They were good after 1 year. That doesn't tell you too much to get excited about. Mitch, 50 starts at Chicago, 0 since. I guess that'll change. And then Sam Bradford, that was kind of like, I felt a little different too because the injury part of it. He had with St. Louis 49 starts and 34 the rest of the way. Philly, Minnesota as well. So some quick math on this. The group of 15 quarterbacks that were not the franchise problem solvers, not the guys that never ever got to touch a football again professionally for money, the group of 15 that were first rounders that started and then never played again, here are the averages. This group averaged 48 starts with the team that drafted them. They averaged 13 starts for the next teams that they played with. So the point of this is that Tannehill is actually an anomaly. Tannehill is somebody that started almost 90 games with the team that drafted him and then went on to have a more statistically successful run, but actually be the guy in Tennessee. Jameis has that chance with New Orleans. Wentz, I don't know what to do with. Goff is kind of weird because it was like they wanted to upgrade from him and Stafford wanted out. So I guess Goff could be in this. So if I'm being nice, if I'm being the most lenient with this study, it's that you have 3 guys out of that group that moved on to another team out of 15 over a 9-year draft span that actually had somewhat of a starting career. And we only have 1 year with Goff, 1 year with Jameis. And honestly, Tannehill's like the gold standard of all of this. I guess you could say Bradford a little, but it was just kind of weird with all the injuries. And then he was basically on a different team every single year after he was with the St. Louis Rams. Those numbers are not very good. Now, why does this happen? Interesting quote that I got from a friend of mine who covers football, and I don't know that he shared it, so I'm not going to name who the quarterback was or who it was that shared it with me, but he was talking about a quarterback in this year's upcoming class in 2023. And the guy said, hey, I have a second-round grade on him. And then the guy from the football team said, well, if you have a second-round grade, that means he's a first-rounder because that's the way it works now. So does it mean now we have even a higher bust rate than 50-50 based on just this last 10-year stretch that I haven't used, the most recent guys in 21 and 20 and then 18, 19? Although it's already leaning towards, hey, they're half your bust right there as we look at those picks in the first round. So could it be that now the evaluation is stretched where teams are knowingly taking lesser prospects earlier than ever before? It didn't happen in this year's draft class. And that's why we have maybe an even higher bust rate and why these guys aren't working out when they go into their second team. There's also another part of this that's very much human nature, and it happens, I think, outside of sports, but definitely all the time in sports. It's a little bit like the NBA lottery pick, where if 24 to 30 months previously you were evaluating a player saying this guy's a lottery pick, we have him 7th on our board, and then he flames out somewhere else, you're like, well, those guys are stupid. It's that coaching staff. They're dumb. So the same thing happens with quarterbacks. You evaluate all the draft picks. You might have needed a quarterback. You end up not taking him. He goes somewhere else. You're like, that coach stinks. They don't know how to develop anybody. The play calling's terrible. They didn't have an offensive line. We're going to bring him in. And then you're like, oh, wait, this guy just does suck. It wasn't them, and it's not us. And then, of course, you have the other approach that you've heard from teams. And I think the Jets are doing this right now. It's way too early for me to just sit in there saying, hey, Zach Wilson is going to suck. Hasn't been a great start, but unfair to say those things. Where the team goes, all right, after 2 years, maybe in year 3, if you think you don't really have it, even though you spent some high picks, a lot of resources on bringing in a new quarterback, you just keep drafting him. Just keep drafting him until you get the one. So what I'm suggesting here is that it's getting even harder. The numbers are getting even worse. And then if you add in the Baker group from that class, Lamar's been terrific. Allen has been terrific. Darnold, bust. Rosen, massive bust. And now you're looking at Baker Mayfield on a new team. And what I would tell any fan base, not even the Panthers, is I would say this. Instead of saying, hey, I always kind of like that guy, when you get him, you're probably better off wondering why you ever did.